Hello everyone, this is Fadi and welcome back to a continuation of this series on the search for Muhammad. Today we are going to take a look at the Dome of the Rock and how we can begin to examine the person, the name Muhammad if you wish, and whether that implies also a historicity or not. We will wait to see what our dear friend and brother Dr. J. Smith is going to share with us concerning this particular evidence. Dr. J, what can we learn from the Dome of the Rock?
Well, for those who don't know what we're talking about, the Dome of the Rock is that beautiful structure that's there in the middle of Jerusalem. It sits up there in the citadel with the Al-Aqsa Mosque there in the southern wall, and the entire citadel surrounds it, the rectangular citadel. Dome of the Rock built by Abd al-Malik in 691. Finished in 691. Of course, it took a few years to build it. Probably the greatest structure of its day, considered to be one of the best example of Byzantine architecture. Isn't that interesting? Using Byzantine architecture. If this was a Muslim, what is he doing using Byzantine architecture? And if he's a Muslim, then what is that building there for? Now, when you ask any Muslim why that building is there, they always say that this is where Muhammad went in the night of power around 621. He was woke up in the middle of the night in Mecca by Jibril, the angel, and told to get on the back of this winged horse called the Burak.
That's right.
And then he was flown up from Mecca all the way up to Jerusalem. And there was a rock, and the rock is still there today. And from that rock, he ascended to the seven heavens.
That's right.
That's called the Mi'raj. And there he met Allah, and Allah told him to pray 50 times a day. He comes down to heavens, to the fifth heaven, and he meets Moses. Moses, how many times did he ask you to pray? He says 50. Let's see if we can get it down. So he goes back up to Allah and says, can I get it down? And he gets from 45. Comes back to Moses. It's still too many. So he bounces back and forth between the seventh and the fifth heaven and gets it from 45 down to 35, down to 15, 10, down to 5 prayers. Once he gets it to 5 prayers, he says, okay, Moses, go on back down. That's enough. And so he then zips down to Jerusalem.
So Moses is the God of Islam.
There you go. So Moses is the one that decides, and
right.
Allah sits there and listens to and does whatever Moses wants. So constantly the roles are changed. In other words, that's the story that they say happened at the Dome of the Rock. And because it happened there at that place, that's why this building was built, to commemorate that. If that were the case, then something should be written about it, right?
Of course.
You would think.
Yeah.
Until you look at it. Take a look at it. Now, be careful. Don't look at the outside of it, because that building on the outside has been destroyed and rebuilt 11 times. That dome you're looking at and the portico where there is the inscription of Surah 17, Ayah 1, and Muslims say, see, Surah 17, Ayah 1 is there. That was actually introduced and was built in 1876. So a little over 100 years ago. So it's very, very very new. Anyhow, the only parts of the dome, and let's take a look at the slide here. There you can see the Dome of the Rock. Take a look at where the 2 green arrows are pointing. Can you see where the 2 green arrows are pointing?
Right.
Those are what we call the 2 inner ambulatories. They're the 2 arches. Those are the only original part of the building that exists today. All the other structures, as beautiful as they are, have been destroyed and rebuilt, 11 times. So that today we get, in fact, when it was first built, from what we understand, it was not a gold dome. It was much more just a plain dome. But now it's been made larger and bigger and much more splendid as the years go on, or as the centuries go on. So that today the only original part are those ambulatories. That's where you need to have to look. And when you look at those ambulatories, you'll see the Arabic inscriptions around them. And those are the ones that tell you why the building is built. And there is no reference at all to Muhammad getting on a winged horse called the Burak, going up and flying up in the middle of the night. No reference to ascending 7 heavens. Nothing about the Miraj at all. All the inscriptions are attacking Jesus Christ.
I mean, you would expect in there to have at least one of those verses, like chapter 17, verse 1, that deals with this issue of the ascension. It's Quranic. I mean, it's not like somebody's writing. It's a verse from the Quran. But you don't find this. You find other verses that attack Jesus.
Well, actually, if you look at chapter 17, verse 1, there's a real problem with that, because what it says,
we know
he
that,
went from the great mosque to the farthest
exactly.
mosque. If the great mosque was revealed to Muhammad in 620 to the farthest mosque, that means there must have been a mosque in Jerusalem in 621.
And that's
what
the
mosque
point.
were there in
Like,
Jerusalem in 621?
You would expect that verse to be there if really it is something to brag about.
But even that's a historical anachronism.
Right.
How can you have a mosque in Jerusalem in 620 when there were no Muslims in Jerusalem until 638?
And it wasn't built until 692.
And this was only built. This building itself was built in 691. So, and that,
91,
Muslims will say,
92,
"Oh,
yeah.
that's the Al-Aqsa Mosque." No, the Al-Aqsa Mosque was built in 709. That's the 8th century. So everywhere you got it, you've got a problem. In fact, that is one of the great glaring historical anachronisms in the Quran. How can you have a verse about him going to the farthest mosque, this mosque, in 621 when there was no Muslims there, proving that the Quran had to be written after 691? Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
Or after 709, if they say that this is the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So after, that's the 8th century, proving again that the Quran itself exposes its own. But let's get back to this again. Let's spin back this. Is this Muhammad? Because the Shahada is introduced on the dome. Muslims are saying this is 691, this is 7th century, therefore this is Muhammad. Proof that Muhammad is in the 7th century. Listen, we're not disputing that by the time Abdul Malik comes to power, he does introduce this. No one would dispute that. Have you heard me ever dispute that?
No.
No. Have I said it's on the coins?
No.
Yes, I have.
I mean, you're talking about the Shahada.
The Shahada. It's on the coins.
Yeah, the Shahada, but there was a development.
Sir, have I ever said it's on the protocols? Yes, I have. Have I said it's on the Dome of the Rock? Have you not heard me say that over and over and over again? That it's Abdul Malik that introduces Muhammad.
Yeah, but the coins is interesting. That's why I was referring to this, because it seemed like the Shahada was evolving in the coins.
Okay, because it always talked about the
Right.
Shahada, that there is no associates.
Right,
But that's not the Shahada we do today.
That's right.
Including on the Dome of the Rock. It also says, and there's no associates. That's not part of the Shahada. That's an attack against Byzantine Christianity, against the idea of the divinity of Jesus. And that's why this La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, I'm desecrated. You say it better than I do. Go ahead and give us the Shahada.
Oh, the La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah.
Okay, I wish I could say it that beautifully. But that's what is there on the Dome of the Rock, along with his associates. Now, that is what they're saying is that's proof there that Muhammad. Listen, no one's disputing that Muhammad's name is there. Unless, of course, as Murad is suggesting, that this is the blessed one. Now say it and put the blessed one. There's no God but God, and the blessed one is the messenger of God. Which blessed one? Who do you think's writing this?
Could it be a Christian and basically origin?
No, this Abdul Malik is writing this. Because remember, he built the Dome of the
So
Rock.
the blessed one is reference to himself?
Absolutely. Isn't that exactly what Muawiyah did on the coins? Referring to himself as the Malik, who is the Bismillah, in the name of God, the king, that's me. I'm the one that Allah is being blessed by. This is normal. Of almost every king does this. They
Well,
look
how
at
come he
themselves.
didn't use the, again, I'm thinking like a critical, basically mind here, a devil's advocate. Why didn't Abdul Malik use the definite article in Arabic, for instance, to use it as a title, Al-Muhammad versus Muhammad?
Good question, and this is what you need to ask, and this is what I would suggest. This is actually the prophet. I would go ahead with you on this. When Murad is insisting that this is actually the blessed one. That's why he would say that this is what kings do, this is what emperors do, this is what Abdul Malik do. He's referring to himself in his messianic role, and that Abdul Malik did have a messianic role. But he's also, this is a political statement. He's also confronting the Byzantines who are there in the Church of the Sepulchre that's down in the valley. That's where the Byzantines had their sanctuary. That's where they had their pilgrimage. That was a center of Christianity and of Judaism. So he's confronting both his cousins, both his Abrahamic cousins. The two of them have come through Isaac. He now comes through Ishmael. And he's putting his building up on top of them, looking down on them, a much bigger structure of the day. And he's confronting and says, I am that messenger. I am the one who is now the blessed one. That's what Murad said. I'm like you. I'm skeptical on this. I would still suggest that this probably is Muhammad. Nonetheless, look at the date, 691. That you can date. Remember in the last episode?
Yeah, the late date is still peculiar, no doubt. Why would
no, this
his
is
name
an early
pop
date.
up?
691 is quite
What
early.
I'm saying, if you're talking about a character that died in 632, how come we don't see something like this until 60
years later.
Yeah.
That's true. And that's where I would agree with you on that.
Yeah.
And I think we're both on the same page on this. And I have said that whenever I've looked at the coins, I'm assuming that is Muhammad that Abdul Malik is introducing on the coins, or Ibn Zubair in 685 that people have thrown me. Listen, whether it's Abdul Malik or Zubair is under the auspices, is under the authority of Abdul Malik. Now, I just got a reference from a Muslim saying, no, Zubair hated Abdul Malik. Yes, he did. But that was not till 687 when he then destroyed Petra, took the Black Stone, and fled down to the south.
Yeah.
So remember, there is a pro and after, there's a precede and post that rebelling against Abdul Malik. But he was still under the authority of Abdul Malik. Regardless of who creates that coin, it would be Abdul Malik that would be responsible for that coin. Okay, so in every case, we're talking about the time and the period of Abdul Malik that this is introduced. So this Muhammad, I wouldn't have a difficulty of saying that this is the Prophet Muhammad. I know that Robert Spencer disagrees with me. This is an ongoing debate. It's a healthy debate. We need to continue that debate. Nonetheless, if Murad or Robert Spencer are correct, and Mel would also agree with them on this, then the conclusion is that Muslims cannot use the Dome of the Rock to support Muhammad's existence in the 7th century either, any more than they can do so with the Quran, and one of the foundational pillars of Islam begins to fall even further. I won't say that right yet. I'm still on the fence. I'm like you. I would suggest that this is the introduction of Muhammad the Prophet, and if that's the case, then this is why they have to put a prophet there, because they need a prophetic line. And I would suggest that what Abdul Malik is doing here, he's introducing that prophetic line. He's introducing his Muhammad. The problem is that Muhammad that he's referring to, as we're going to see in the next episode, who is this guy? I've been intimating we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. Who is this guy that they're referring to? There is a Muhammad in the 7th century. And I would suggest that maybe this is the guy he's referring to, or it could be the Blessed One. Nonetheless, we're going to have to leave it there until we get to the next episode.
And these are just valid questions to ask, of course. All we're doing is we're putting it out there. Could it be?
White paper.
Right, exactly. And also, these are very valid questions to ask. We have enough information now where you can talk about these theories, if you wish, with confidence. But you cannot take just the traditional view anymore, just blindly, without questioning it.
And can we now say categorically that prior to 691, when this building was built, prior to 692, when the coins were introduced, prior to 691, when the protocols were introduced, where Muhammad is introduced on those protocols, coins, and the Dome of the Rock, there is no Muhammad that is anywhere close to the traditions. The Doctrine Jacobi you cannot use. The Constitution of Medina, the Pact of Omar, you cannot use. You cannot read the writings of Sabaeus anymore. We've debunked all of those. The Quran, I would suggest, could be Muhammad, but that comes even later. That comes after the Dome of the Rock. Interestingly, even these verses, even these writings that are on the Dome of the Rock are Quranic. They are from chapter 4, verse 171. They are also from chapter 112 of the Quran. But they're not the same that you find in the Quran, but they agree with the coins that Abdul Malik introduces in 692, 693, and 696.
Right.
Those all have the same references that are on the Dome of the Rock. The Quran then creates and lifts those references, but changes it, takes out the associates, and introduces just the Shahada of the God and Muhammad himself, which seems to suggest that those introductions in the Quran are coming possibly from the late Umayyad period or the early Abbasid period. Here's that Umayyad Abbasid back and forth. We're going to be getting about that problem between the Umayyads and Abbasids finally when we get to our conclusions. But I just want to put that in there because I have been saying I'm going to talk about the Abbasids. Hold on to a minute. We are going to talk about the Abbasids because all of this plays into that as we're seeing this evolution of how this Islam is finally being formed.
So next time we're going to start talking about this tension?
No, not yet. Well, yes, we are. Yes, we are. We're going to talk about who then is this Muhammad from the 7th century.
Right. Very good. All right. Thank you, brother. Thank you, everyone. Hope to see you again next time. This is Fadi, over and out. God bless.